I believe that the consumer wants information, and the old sales cycles of like, well, I got to measure everything. And they go, well, what's a rough ballpark? And you go, well, I don't know. Like, you don't build trust and rapport.
Yeah.
I think you can do that when you tell a client, it's roughly $20 to $24 a square foot, but I got to see it. Immediately they trust you.
Yeah.
Tradies and contractors making over $50,000 a month in revenue. I will guarantee you 30 qualified leads in the space of 90 days, or it is free. You heard that right. It's 30 qualified leads in the space of 90 days, or it's free. And you're probably sitting here thinking, what the heck? That's a 10x result on what I'm currently getting from my marketing. And that's the point. We have finally cracked the code. We've got this amazing new process. It is working, and we are absolutely rolling this out big time. Head across to tradie.wiki/offer. That's tradie.wiki/offer. Fill in the form, book a time to have a chat, and we look forward to helping you grow. Ciao.
Matt, welcome to the Sideshow podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All the way from downtown LA.
Yeah, it's a trip. We love it out here.
The City of Angels.
So they say.
That hasn't been my experience in LA, I can tell you.
Yeah. Are we gonna have enough time to unpack that one?
Yeah. City of rat bags, I think, is probably a bit more fitting. But yeah. No, it's great. It's a great part of the world. So, mate, thanks for joining us today. We're here to talk about how we can implement a virtual estimating process to maximize profitability and grow your sales team. Very exciting. As I was saying to you just before, I just got off a phone call, 2 phone calls with salespeople that we're recruiting. So it's timely that you're here to discuss this. Actually, funnily enough, this is really super relevant for even like the clients that we're working with at the moment as well, because we're seeing that like we're very active in the lead generation space for construction based sales. Businesses like builders and solar companies and that kind of thing. And it gets to the point where we're generating these leads, and they're starting to need salespeople to really handle the inbound inquiries and that kind of stuff, and process behind it. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really good fitting conversation for both us selfishly and our audience.
We spend a lot of time building it out, so it's much more a science now than an art when we first started.
Sure. Yeah. So give us a bit of a rundown, because I know you've got a very systemic history, family background in the contracting space, and you also run a bit of a consulting gig over there. So give us a bit of a rundown.
Yeah, I mean, my family's been in construction 104 years. Both my great-grandfathers from Italy, my grandfather, father, uncle, and me. So I started working when I was 9. I love everything about the business. I was laying brick by about 12 years old, and the journey grew up from there. So, it's very much that blue-collar kind of American dream. But I was fortunate enough to see the impact of technology and marketing in companies, because I saw old school businesses that only did word of mouth, and then saw it transition to online, and those who didn't adopt and adapt were in big trouble. And so I have this kind of unique perspective of working with the old timers, but also, seeing the technology, because I was young at the time. And then we grew the business in Los Angeles. We do residential work, commercial work, and government work. So we have 3 verticals within my company. We do masonry and concrete, but we're licensed to do, general contracting as well. And so we've grown quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Unreal. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Like, there's that whole, we're seeing this a lot with pretty much all the clients that we're working with when they come to us. They're busy through things like word of mouth, but they don't really have any systems set up that can generate their own flow of leads, and it's very, very hard for them to grow past a certain point just based on, word of mouth, which is kind of an observation that we've made and been able to sort of dial in a bit of a process to target those specific businesses,
No, I mean, I look at it like a cockpit, right? And I'm the pilot of the business, and I don't have a word of mouth dial that I can turn up or down. So it's hard to fly the plane if that's my accelerator.
Yeah, well, I mean, we call it scalable acquisition, and the reason being there, if you want to scale it up or down, you're kind of in more control. Whereas if you're relying on word of mouth, you don't have any control over that. Like it's just you get what you get.
Which is tough on both sides. It's tough too because sometimes you get too much word of mouth, and then things are overflowing. Like I think you can struggle on both sides of it, not enough, and then it's like very much feast or famine when you're relying on that. So I don't miss those days.
Yeah, I agree, and it lends itself to you just taking what you can get. Sometimes when you do get a little bit like desperate, whereas when you've got a consistent flow of leads, like we're seeing, our clients have been able to sort of be a bit more picky and choosy with who they decide to work with because they know there's more leads coming in the next couple of days. So it's definitely a avenue I thoroughly encourage investigating for you guys out there that are dependent really at the moment on word of mouth and don't have a consistent influx of leads coming into your business, because it really does put you in a position where you can steer the ship a lot more creatively. Cool. So anyway, we're here today to talk about how we can, like the virtual estimating process. I'd love to hear what this is all about. Because I know, like with especially the project-based builders that we work with, like typically that like their sales process, and what we help them really develop as well, which might tie in beautifully to what you're going to be talking about here today, is when those leads come in, what's the next journey for them, and what are the steps in order to make sure that you're first of all servicing and getting back to the leads that you're getting, but then second of all, making sure that when it goes to the next stage, you're not wasting any of your time or resources unnecessarily. And I'm thinking that this virtual estimating process might be the silver bullet.
Well, it's a convenience thing. We're embracing technology. When clients can send in photos or contractors can send in a set of plans and get a quote the same day or next day, get on the phone with you, Zoom call, sometimes FaceTime. I mean, it works in all different verticals, right? We find that there's a scalability, but there's also an element of being able to acquire more leads because you can filter through them so quickly.
So how does that look like? Talk me through virtual estimation. Like, I mean, we find typically with the clients that we work with, the thing that we're trying to help them, I suppose, remove from their existing business is that conversation. Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, when the leads come in, we want them to be able to qualify those leads, and then if that lead is worth going to site to do a proper like site visit investigation or whatever, having a process down where they can essentially get out there on site, do the work they need to do, and get paid for the next part of the process, which is basically preparing like the detailed quote. So the first part of the call may often result in like an estimate, but it's an estimate. It's not a black and white line in the sand thing, obviously, because you kind of we find that they kind of need to get out there to measure up and do all those finer detail research, researching why they're out on site. What does that look like at your end?
So our model is we tell it it's our company. So as you're listening, you can think through the changes you might make. But for us, if you call our company right now, you have two options. You have a virtual consultation or an in-person consultation. The in-person's $97 credited to the work. That's where we go out and we help design and uncover exactly what you want. And there's a whole process for that. But the virtual side, it's quick, it's easy. The clients send in between 3 and 5 photos. We have a how-to video that they get sent. That's 60 to 90 seconds. It's all digital where they send in the photos. It auto-populates to a calendar. But in essence, what we're doing is it works really well for short cycle and long cycle. So like some of our projects are $500,000, $750,000. It might be a whole backyard. It might be a really complicated retaining wall project. And what it allows us to do is to build rapport and to qualify from a pricing perspective without going out there. So if Mr. Jones sends in 3 pictures of his driveway and we get on the phone with him and we say, we uncover his needs, his wants, right? What materials he's thinking about. And we can give him a preliminary price. We can do that. Our average call is about 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, we can discern whether or not we should go out to a client who now knows preliminarily what the price is. So plus or minus 10%. or if we're not a good fit, right? He may say, I've gotten 3 quotes. You're by far double. I don't want anything to do it. Great. We did that in 10 minutes. Or, he may say, well, you're in the ballpark. I'd love to get you out. But the real thing that we unpacked is we do about 4 of these an hour. So a salesperson can talk to anywhere between 25 and 35 clients a day. You could never drive to those clients in LA traffic. So it's about scale and efficiency.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the biggest thing and I literally had this conversation with a client yesterday. Shout out to Sam, because I know he'll listen to this, but these sales techs are currently driving around doing these, on-site site visits for, solar projects and things like that. And like they're not qualified enough to be out there doing that. Like there needs to be that step in between. So this is really useful, because like this is exactly what we've been saying to people for ages. Like try and qualify them as much as you can before you get out there, so that essentially, and this is what we like to teach in-house, is like that site visit kind of turns into a sales call where essentially they're taking a deposit and scheduling in the project.
Well, yeah, we look at it like we're discerning whether or not, number one, we're a good fit for the project, but number two, if we want it or not, right? Because we have that level of control. So we get to decide. And if we, sometimes we might even waive a fee if a client's on the fence and they're like, well, not everyone charges. Like it just gives us so much control, and it builds rapport, because the last line in the call is great. So our team's going to call you within the hour to schedule, and I'll be the one coming out. So we'll pick right up where we left off here. I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person. It's beautiful because you're just continuing a relationship you already built.
Yeah, I love that. So let's go back to the process, before the technology, when the lead comes in, and you mentioned the salespeople there that are taking the calls and they're qualifying those leads, or perhaps more importantly, disqualifying the leads. What are some of the questions that they're asking, or you guys teach to sort of remove like those leads and get that qualification process dialed in? And I also appreciate this is probably never a done thing. It's always a work in progress.
Yeah. So the nice thing about the call is because it's so low stakes, my team on the phone, so when a lead comes in, my team's getting that lead within 3 minutes. Like we're either answering the phone or we're calling it back within 3 to 5. Like that is a standard at our company. But when we get on the phone, it's a high level qualification. We have a list of services. We have a map. If they mention any of these keywords or they mention any of these locations, you send them through to one of those 2 pathways. So we don't have to worry about qualifying too much on that end. It gets qualified more when the project consultant talks to them, because here's the thing, you're 3 minutes in, 5 minutes in, you talk to them, hey, we don't do that type of chimney work anymore. Oh, I'm so sorry, but let me refer you to XYZ company. By the way, we also do these services. Oh, you know what? I was actually thinking about fixing that. Like, it's such low stakes on these calls that the front office is just friendly, quick, builds initial rapport, and kicks it over to one of the 2 pathways as fast as they can.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So does that mean then they that initial call with the call takers, the office assistants, whatever, they then are sending that lead through to whatever department is relevant for that inquiry? Is that the idea?
So they schedule it right then and there. So if you call up, let's say you call up Matt and you're like, hey, I want to redo my backyard. Great. So, talk a little bit about the company. We have a script, right? Ask some questions. You mentioned some keywords. We look at your area. Boom. We know you're going to the next step. Well, we have 2 pathways, right? So if you're like, well, let me send in some photos. I don't know that I want to pay a fee right now, just, to come out. Great. So Matt, as in me, right, has availability tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Does that work for you? Yeah, it does. Great. Boom. They auto book that, and then they get reminders to send the photos. So they're booking that call.
Gotcha.
So the technician, right, or the project consultant is showing up to pre-scheduled calls for within the hour all day long.
Okay. Awesome. So what sort of conversion improvements can business owners start to see off the back of doing a process like this?
Well, the one is we found letting more in. So we actually had tighter qualifying in the front end, but we let more in. So we let the outer edges in of services, because number one, it allows me to give work to my affiliate companies. So I can refer to a chimney company. I can refer to people that we don't do work with, and it still gets us in front of the client. We've already paid for the lead. So that's a neat little thing we found. Number two is our ability to do two things. Number one, get the last look. So sometimes clients have met with 3 or 4 different contractors, but they're still not comfortable. We can get that last look where they've already got all the measurements, they've already got the scope, and they just needed somebody to build a lot of rapport and have knowledge. And that's a good thing we can do without going out there, and it's very low commitment. And then for a lot of people, some of the best clients are the busy ones, right? They're CEOs, they're executives, they're busy. So this process works for them where they're like, I don't want to spend an hour, I don't want to waste my time. Great, 10 minutes, they know what they're getting. They feel better about moving forward.
Sure, yeah, and this is again, it's so funny you're saying all this stuff because it's exactly the conversations we're having with our clients. It's at the space of like, stop creating these bottlenecks and obstacles with like time restraints. Like there's this mentality around like I don't know why I don't know if it's expected or it's just because it's always been done where you have this process around like just wasting time both for your team and for your potential customers. And it's so irrelevant today.
No, I mean, we sell $3,000 to about $20,000. Sometimes clients are like, I don't even want to hop on a call. They'll send in pictures. My team in between that will just shoot ballpark numbers out. They'll be like, great, love it. Schedule the appointment. They're selling $18,000, $20,000 jobs because the clientele is impatient. They want to just get information. And we live in a world where information shouldn't be that hard to get. And that's the premise.
So do you think it's as much the technology or the process behind and the mindset behind the like the flow here that's paramount?
It's the psychology, right? I think it's the mindset and the psychology of the consumer wanting information. Because I believe, it's my belief, and this is, we built this over the course of a couple of years, and this was pre-COVID, but I believe that the consumer wants information, and the old sales cycles of like, well, I got to measure everything. And they go, well, what's a rough ballpark? And you go, well, I don't know. Like, you don't build trust and rapport.
Yeah.
I think you can do that when you tell the client, it's roughly $20 to $24 a square foot, but I got to see it. Immediately they trust you. Yeah.
Yeah. We're doing similar things with that, like solar clients where they'd sort of say, look, from what you've told us in your inquiry, you're probably going to be this package, which starts at about $20,000, but we're going to come out and actually measure up to make sure, because there are sometimes things we can't visualize through aerial maps that we'll need to be able to, communicate once we're out on site. And people normally then are like, cool, they kind of got an idea, a bit of a disqualifier if it's too high. Oh, wow, 24, no way, I'm not spending that much. Cool, no worries, see you later. Or, yep, sounds good, let's go.
And I think building off of that, one standard we have is we look for 3 ways in which we could give more knowledge over the phone than the average competitor would do in person. And so we pull the house up on Google Maps, we look at it, we read their notes. And so we're always looking for things where we can get more accomplished. For example, we'll say things like, I looked at your house and I noticed that you have, about 2.5 feet of access on the side of your home. And they go, oh, wow. Like, we do things to build this trust and professionalism. Even looking at even things like, oh, I noticed your neighbor has an alley in their back. Could we access it from there? And they go, well, actually, that no one's thought of that yet. And they're going, this guy or gal got more over the phone than the 3 people who came out, to look at it in person.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about how you roll this out and implement it in the landscape of change, when we're talking about, because like often you'll have businesses that have been doing something a certain way, and that whole "it ain't broke, don't fix it" kind of mentality, when all of a sudden you throw this new model into the mix and people all clam up. People hate change, right? It's just normal. So how do you navigate that?
That's tough. My team wasn't bought into this model. This was, again, pre-COVID when we started doing this, and they were like, wait a minute, what? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to go virtual. I'm like, this is the next, this is the future. So we started off by just simple. Step 1 was, hey, you can send us some photos and we can give you a quick price over the phone, or we can come out. And at that time, we weren't charging. And so we found that, like, I forget the exact stat, but it was staggering. It was like 60% of clients wanted to just send photos and quickly schedule. And I was like, wow, this was interesting. So I managed those like first 25 appointments. I managed all of them. Like, I was like, send them my calendar. I'll talk to the client. I'll figure this out, like what we need to say. So I felt in control, and which as an owner, you always want to, it's tough, right? To give that up, especially when it's uncharted waters. This was before all the digital stuff. Like I said, after COVID, things became more normalized, but this was like totally off the beaten path. So we started with that. Then we started, and I realized that because we offered this, we rolled out, it was a small fee, I think $47. So it was like, we can come out for 47 or you can send in photos. I was trying to push people more towards the photos if they weren't serious about us coming out because of the time and everything. And then I realized 47 wasn't pushing enough people away. Like they were like, well, we thought it was easier to get you out anyway. And I'm like, I just drove an hour and a half. Like it would have been nice, you know? So we kicked it to 97. We tested 147. That was pushing out too much. We found our sweet spot. But I know people where I've helped them build this model and they don't even charge. It's just a convenient speed thing. Like I have a commercial contractor and he does it with plans. You know, he does it with blueprints where he's like, hey, send us a set of plans. I'll pick one item off that and I'll kick you a number. We'll hop on a call later today. Like you can use the psychology for any type of the business.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I was just wondering, like, what the transition looked like. Well, I mean, you can tell me from what your guys you were saying there was resistance to X. They didn't want to do it. How was it adopted?
It was adopted because first thing we did was we set tight metrics. Everything was tracked. So we were, every single client, every lead, we're like, look, we're going to take the next 25 calls and do this process. Then after that's done, go back to the way we were doing it before. So we took a data set. So that was the first thing. That made everyone feel more comfortable because everyone was like, this isn't going to work. We'll do the 25 and we'll be good. But then when 60 some odd % of people wanted to do it, then it was like, okay. But I had buy-in at that point from the team because it wasn't me saying this is going to work. It was me saying, hey, let's just test 25 people. That's how I got the buy-in. That's how we adopted it.
And I suppose once they see it in motion, then it's sort of does all the selling for you, right?
Well, it became easier for everybody. And the sales, my sales team was like, whoa. When I'm doing these calls, I would joke around my sales team. I'd be like, hey, how many appointments did you do? He'd be like, I'm on my second appointment. I'm like, I did 9 calls. I text him, give him a little, I joke around. I'd be like, I hit 9 so far. Like, you got to speed up. And so we'd have a joking culture and have fun with it. And then they started to go, oh, there's something here.
Yeah, amazing. So what else do you like? What else do you think are some of these like potential opportunities which businesses today are not capitalizing on in this space?
I think for me, it's number one, defining your brand and who you are in the marketplace is one thing that I think is totally underlooked. So like you buy a car, if I name names of car, what's a Ferrari, right? What's a BMW? You know where it fits relative to other brands. With construction, it's so hard. And I don't think a lot of companies either A, know what they are, or B, know how they fit relative to their competitors. Some people think, like, I have a friend of mine, he owns a fencing company. He's like, I'm high priced. I'm like, Jack, what do you charge a linear foot? Right? I called 4 other people. I'm like, you're the lowest of the 4, price-wise. He's like, you're kidding. I'm like, you've never shopped your competitors? So I think brand is huge, and positioning relative to your competitors. That's a huge thing I see that's overlooked.
We call part of our process is help. We call that defining their unique mechanism. Like, why are they different? Because there's so often like this, like we see it all the time. It's just it's the same messaging, the same ad copy, the same content as every other business out there, and they just end up being a commodity. And it's just the same stuff, So like we really work hard to try and help them develop process which is uniquely theirs, just to sort of help them stand out from the noise.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's what helped us grow.
So once you had that process sort of dialed in, did it help you scale like the sales side of the business? And then of course, once sales sides, you can scale fulfillment and blah, 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 blah. Talk me through that.
I mean, it allowed us to just go crazy with the marketing. We could get so many leads. Right. We could test. We had because in the same time that it took, I think the exact number is, but when you factor on leaving a central location, going out to an appointment, typing up the quote and coming back, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours LA. In that same time, I'm talking to 10 people, like building relationship, talking to them, building rapport. So it's literally a 10-to-1 ratio. So it opened up a huge possibility for us to just add on different ways of marketing, test, and figure out what worked and what didn't without clogging up the works. Because it was so easy to put a salesperson at capacity with these constraints, but with the calls, it was like, sure, let's try this. Let's generate 20 leads. We'll just have so-and-so work 4 hours on a Saturday and just rip through them, and see if it works. Like that flexibility was huge for us to see.
And it's nice that it's kind of like simplifies and polarizes the process in the sense that whatever you're doing, just driving people to the one process. It doesn't matter where the lead comes from at the end of the day, you can scale all of them, but just taking them through the same process, which is very easy to scale as opposed to, currently what businesses might have, so many different things going on and so many different workflows for different leads and all this kind of stuff, whereas just simplifying everything into the one, that one avenue sounds super useful.
Yeah, and I think the hesitation is, well, if I'm not in person, I can't build that rapport. And I think I would be lying if I said I didn't lose a sale every now and again because I did a phone call versus in person. But my one salesperson is talking to 10 times as many people as X's competitor salesperson. So by default, it's like, yeah, sure, we might lose one or two because we weren't there to like do the full demo and they would have been on the fence and we could have got them over and the call didn't achieve that. But when you look at volume, it's just, the metrics are insane.
Yeah, interesting. And so where do you think, what does this look like evolving further? Is there, if you look through the crystal ball, what does this look like, a couple of years down the track in terms of how this process might change?
I think, so we're seeing a lot more clients that want to FaceTime. We're seeing more people that want video. Oh, yeah. They're getting more accustomed to it. Yeah, I would say it's probably about 15% now requesting it. Hey, can we hop on FaceTime? Can I show you this? So the consumer is getting more accustomed to video chatting, like holding their camera, walking you through it. Like I'll sit with clients at a kitchen table. I'll take the FaceTime one sometimes. Like I'll see a note that says, client requests FaceTime, and I'll get on that. And the consumer behavior is like you're sitting at the table with them, and then they bring you outside and they turn around, the camera, and they're showing you. And these are people, late 40s, late 50s, sometimes late 60s. Like the consumer is becoming much more accustomed to it. The phone call is actually, I'm noticing, shifting. So I think that the entire industry will be much more video based and homeowners will be so much more used to just like video chatting with contractors. That's where I think the next big leap is.
We're seeing it. We see it in our own marketing. We see it with clients, like having that face-to-face transaction. If there's one good thing that's come out of COVID, it's that whole people now used to being in Zoom rooms and all that kind of stuff, because it's great. It's nice to be able, you know what, like on a slight segue, this is one thing that we've really drive home with our clients, and you've kind of touched on it, but like putting a face to the business where, like it's okay now. And we like really encourage people to, have meet the team pages and photos of you as the director and tell your story, because people like to know who they're letting into their house. And like, it's just that extra layer of security for them when they can see like, oh, this is Matt who's coming out to our place. I've read his bio. I know a little bit about him. I know what he looks like especially like that barrier of resistance when you've got, maybe a mum at home while the dad's at work and a couple of little kids running around. Like, you've got to try and reduce those barriers of fear, whether they're obvious or not, and there's things that you can do in that space which really do it. And I think like what you're saying, yes, the video calls without question do that. And then also just across your other collateral, how can you improve that from the business point of view?
Well, yeah, we do the confirmation with like who's going out there, information about them, but we found that touch point, that relationship, like you're saying, and then putting a face to it was a huge, but like I remember, I think it was a 2-digit 10 or 12% increase in conversions when we started sending like who was going out ahead of time, like the photo and a little bit about them. Because it created like, and we even included like a little information about, like likes to golf or something. And then they show up and they'd be like, oh, you're a golfer too. Like it just created that human touch.
Yeah, exactly. And you send that out through email, do you normally?
Yeah, that all gets, so they get an appointment. I mean, our stuff is all on like fully, like you confirm an appointment, you get reminders, you get an email that goes out, photo of the person, all that. But I remember installing that probably 3 years ago, and it was a boost. I was like, why don't we show them who it is? Because we were getting like people at the door being like, are you Matt? I don't recognize, I kind of recognize the voice, but not the face. Like, I was like, they need to see us,
Yeah, exactly right. Oh, man, it's so refreshing to hear someone else saying the same stuff. I feel like when I say to my clients, I just feel like I'm their dad nagging them.
I mean, for me, it was costing me money. Like I saw it, directly, the input output. And so it's cost a lot of money not to have these things.
So Matt, where do people get hold of you? What's the is there anything we've missed out on?
No, I mean, we've got my other company, we do hiring for construction business owners. We created a course, endorsed by ZipRecruiter and Indeed. So I do a lot of things, but if anybody has hiring questions or help, I mean, that's certainly something that I'm equally passionate about.
Yeah, well, maybe we could do another podcast on that. I know that's certainly relevant at the moment with people trying to attract talent and that kind of thing. So I'd be super keen to touch on that.
I'd love to. Yeah, with 37 proven ways to find candidates. I mean, it's something I lost $1 million in the span of 3 weeks by not knowing this information. And so I created the course after figuring it out, and we've been doing it. But I think when you figure out how to hire, obviously what you're talking about comes first, because if you don't have the lead flow, you can't control your business, right? But then the next big thing is, all right, how do I grow and put in well-trained people that want to, deliver on the brand promise?
Oh man, 100%. And that whole, I think well-trained is the key there. Like that whole mentality, I think, around hiring for attitude today. It's obviously it does make sense, but you need people that have got skill. Like we've just recently fallen into that trap where we hired someone, oh, you'll be great. You're a great dude. You have really good personality and you're keen to learn how to sell. Cool. Just did not work. We should have just gone. And now I'm just no, we're hiring people that know how to sell, people that understand sales.
I mean, that's simple. I hired enough of my competitors' people. I would hire laborers, right, that were working for a competitor 3, 4, 5 years. They go through this robust training program, and then we just scoop them up. And I'm going, I don't want to be on the other side of that fence, where I take 5 years because I hired, strictly for attitude, no skill, and then 5 years of training. They're right at maturity now, where they really can produce for the company. And then we come along and we're like, hey, we've got, a great culture, we've got great pay, and they go, oh, this is better. So it taught me, hey, hit the low-hanging fruit first. And then if you, once you've culled all the available options in your local area, then it's okay, now you got to do that.
Well, man, we definitely do a podcast on this. So let's, we'll riff offline on how we can, on setting that up, and we'll jump back in. But mate, thanks so much for your time. This has been really, really useful. And again, I just love everything you're saying is literally what we're going through as well at our end. So it's super relevant. So man,
nice.
thanks for your time. It's been super valuable.
Of course. Thank you.
So for your listeners and viewers out there, if anything that you've just heard there around that whole sales process and anything like that resonates, by all means, hit us up on wherever you see this come through, an email or Facebook or YouTube or whatever it is. Give us some comments and let us know. It's something we're super passionate about at the moment. And if you want us to elaborate any further or anything, then again, let us know in the comments. I'm sure Matt will come back on and spill some more beans to help you guys out. Otherwise, man, that is a wrap.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the SiteShed podcast. If you like the sound of 30 qualified proposals in the space of 90 days, I just want to recap. Head across to tradie.wiki/offer. Watch the videos, fill in the form, and make sure you book a time to have a chat with me. This is for businesses that are making $50,000 a month in revenue, are located in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or the USA, and you're a trade business or a contractor that works with project-based work. Head across to tradie.wiki/offer. Yes, I realize it sounds too good to be true. Trust me, it works. Do it now. I look forward to chatting to you soon. Ciao.